Today we're making no-fail, easy vegan dinners. Let's make magic. Today I'm sharing my favourite 3 meals that I make when I need an easy recipe that's just going to work. When I'm having a hectic week, I don't want to worry about whether a recipe is going to turn out well. These 3 meals work extremely well every single time for me, and I make them time and time again. All of my recipes are vegan, gluten-free, great for weight loss as they are around 400 calories each. They're high in protein, high in nutrients, completely balanced, filling and delicious. They are so easy to make because I focus on using very quick preparation ingredients that can be bought locally for most people. All of the recipes, nutritional information and ingredient substitutions are on my blog with links below. The first recipe we are going to make is a lentil spaghetti bolognese that's vegan and gluten-free, and this is 422 calories and 21 grams of protein, so it's very high in protein, and it contains all natural ingredients. A spaghetti bolognese recipe typically contains carrots and celery, but these take a long time to cook. But I've used mushrooms and onions instead, which halves the cooking time, so it makes this a speedy recipe that cooks in round about 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes. So the first thing we're going to do is chop the onions, and these were particularly strong onions and they actually made me cry. I had tears rolling down my face when I was chopping these onions, the lengths that we go to make a delicious meal. Next, I'm dicing up the mushrooms. I always use large mushrooms such as portobello mushrooms because they are so much easier to prepare. They take seconds to wash big mushrooms compared to small mushrooms, and they're much faster to chop big mushrooms as well. That's why I always buy these, because it saves me so much time. Next, we're adding a little oil to the pan. You can use olive oil or sunflower oil. I like sunflower oil at the moment. And yes, you can still use oil and lose weight. You don't have to eliminate oil. Oil is what makes this particular recipe very tasty, and we're not going to include any fatty dressings, so it's fine to add a little fat to start with, and fat is essential. I don't always use oil, but today I am. You can skip this if you want. The recipe will still work if you don't use oil. Now add the onions to the pan. If you're not using oil, you can add a little water and simmer the onions in the water. We're going to stir these onions and cook them on a medium heat for a few minutes. Now we're adding in the mushrooms and stirring these for a few minutes. Now we're going to add some garlic. To save myself time, I use garlic that has been pre-chopped and frozen, but you can use fresh garlic if you like. Stir all this for a few minutes. Now we're going to add our flavour. We are using some stock, homemade stock powder, and I have a recipe on my blog for this. I'm also using some Italian seasoning that I have also made, and this is another massive time saver by using my own homemade seasoning blends. I have 12 of these and the recipes are on my blog. Now we're going to add some salt, give it a stir. Now we're adding in the liquid, so add in some water first of all, some canned chopped tomatoes, and now add in the rinsed red lentils. We're going to add in some liquid flavour now. First of all, let's add some sweet syrup. I like to use maple syrup or Sweet Freedom. We're going to add in some red wine vinegar, and you can use a vinegar of your choice. Next, we're going to put in some tomato paste or tomato puree. And finally, some fresh basil. A lot of people like to add their fresh herbs right at the very end, but I'm going to add some on the top as well. So I'm putting in my basil now. Give it all a stir and leave it to simmer for a while. All of these recipes are very forgiving, so you can either cook them a little time or for longer. The longer you cook them, the more the flavours will intensify, but the more the sauce will reduce. Red lentils take around about 15 minutes to cook, but the longer you leave them, the mushier they get. I like my red lentils very mushy because they've got that melt in the mouth texture to them. And the lentils are what makes this dish very hearty and very meaty. So they're very satisfying. If you don't want to use lentils, you can see the substitutions on the blog. While my bolognese is cooking, I am going to make some pasta, and this is gluten-free pasta, and it is spaghetti pasta. If you don't have spaghetti, you can use any pasta of your choice. Now it's time to assemble the dish. Grab yourself your favourite bowl, add your cooked spaghetti. I like to make a well in the centre, and put your lentil bolognese on top in the middle. Now we're going to add in our aesthetic additions in the form of cherry or grape tomatoes, a sprinkle of nutritional yeast or your favourite vegan cheese, and some fresh basil leaves. I always look forward to this dish when I serve it up. If you're loving this content so far, please hit the like button because it helps more people to find it. The next recipe we are going to make is my store cupboard red lentil dal, which is vegan and gluten-free, and it contains 395 calories and 17 grams of protein. And I love this recipe because this is the recipe that I go to when I haven't planned any recipes. I literally just open up my cupboards and know that I always have the ingredients to make this recipe based on what I already have. This recipe is simple, but it is so delicious. And can you believe that it took me about a decade to finally make this recipe? I had it on my list of recipes to make for such a long time, but I never ended up making it because it sounded so boring. And when I made it, I was absolutely blown away. I so wished I'd made it earlier because it's anything but boring. It is absolutely delicious. And you won't believe me until you try it for yourself. And while this is cooking, you can make yourself a very quick side salad and add some rice to this. You can mix up your side dishes as you choose. There is no chopping in this main dish. You literally just throw everything in. So we are starting by throwing in our canned chopped tomatoes, followed by a can of light coconut milk. We're going to add in some water and some rinsed red lentils. Now on to the taste. We are going to add in some garlic. I have some pre-chopped freezer garlic that I use for all my recipes because it saves me so much time. And I also have some pre-chopped ginger in my freezer as well, and I buy it pre-chopped so it saves me from chopping it myself. Next, we're adding in my homemade curry powder. I always use my own homemade seasonings because they save so much time. The recipes for the whole batch and single servings are on my blog. Now I'm going to add in some of my homemade stock powder. I'm adding in some tamari, which is gluten-free soy sauce, some lemon juice, and this is another time saving that I have implemented. I rarely buy whole lemons or whole limes anymore. I use juice from a bottle instead. Now I'm adding in some fresh coriander or cilantro. Give it a stir, and it looks so watery right now, but the lentils are really going to thicken up the whole sauce. And just like magic, it is done. It smells amazing and it looks so tasty. Now I'm going to prepare my rice. I've already pre-cooked my rice and stored it in the freezer. And I have a video showing you how I put all of my carbs in my freezer beforehand, because this saves me time as well. So I'm just warming it up on the stove. I'm just adding a small amount of water to it and just heating it up gently. Now I'm preparing a very simple salad of just some sliced cucumber and sliced small tomatoes. Let's serve everything up. Add the rice to your bowl, followed by a quarter of the red lentil dal, some vegan soy yogurt. Now we're going to add some aesthetic additions, the side salad, some coriander or cilantro to garnish, and some delicious homemade pickled onions. To make this even more pretty and tasty, I'm adding in some white sesame seeds and some black sesame seeds. All of this is totally optional. I really adore this meal. It's so quick, it's so easy, it looks so pretty, and it's so tasty. No wonder I keep on making it time and time again. The next recipe we're making is a vegan sausage casserole, which is also gluten-free, and this contains 433 calories and 26 grams of protein, so it's very high in protein. This recipe is so simple and easy to make. There's a small amount of chopping and then you just throw everything in. It's one of my favourite recipes. And this recipe is very quick, especially if you use store-bought vegan sausages. And if you don't want to use store-bought sausages, then I do have my own homemade sausage recipes, but what you need to do is add them on top of the stew at the very end once you've plated everything up to help them stay together because they have no casing on them. And I love the smoky flavour in this recipe. It tastes so good and you wouldn't believe it came together so easily. The first thing I'm doing is chopping up some yellow peppers and red peppers to make this look pretty. Next, I'm dicing up my red onion. I'm adding a small amount of oil to the pan for flavour. Add in the diced onions and give it a stir for a few minutes. When your onions have started to soften, now you can add in your vegan sausages from the store. And we're going to leave these to brown for a few minutes. When they've browned on both sides, now we're going to add in the pepper and give it a stir. Next, it's time for some garlic, so I'm using my store-bought pre-chopped garlic again. And I'm adding in some more of my homemade stock powder, as well as some of my homemade barbecue seasoning, and also some Italian seasoning. Pop in some salt, give it a good stir. Now it's time for the liquid. Add in 2 cans of chopped tomatoes, some canned butter beans, white beans, lima beans, whatever you call them. Now add in some tomato paste or tomato puree. And now we're adding in the secret sauce. Liquid smoke. This is what makes the recipe taste smoky and absolutely delicious. It's up to you whether you want to use it, but I absolutely adore liquid smoke. If you don't want to use liquid smoke, you could use some smoked paprika instead. Give it a good stir and leave it to simmer. This no-fuss recipe comes together so easy. Just add a quarter of the recipe to your dish with one of the sausages. For the aesthetic additions, I have used chopped spring or green onions, and you can choose your own side dish for this recipe. My favourites are either mashed potato or cornbread with a small scraping of vegan butter on top. So delicious. I have designed all of these recipes to follow my healthy weight plant-based plate system. This system helps you lose weight eating delicious, filling, plant-based meals, and I explain how this works in my blog post. And if you'd like to reach your ideal weight on a plant-based diet, I have a weight loss system that has helped thousands of people to lose weight and recover from their health problems. My system is called the Leaf System, and I have a link to that below. And if you'd like to see how I stocked my freezer with 8 different types of nutritious carbs that help me lose weight, then go and watch this video next. Now it's your turn to go and make magic with food.
The magical life of